"I need a husband by tomorrow," a waitress broke on New Year's Eve until a single dad stood up. The clock above the diner counter blinked 11:47 p.m., and the year was dying with a tired sigh, the way a candle gives up when the wax is gone. Outside, fireworks rehearsed their joy in the distance, but inside the small roadside diner, the air smelled of burnt coffee, cold fries, and panic. Her hands were shaking as she wiped the counter for the third time, not because it was dirty, but because tomorrow felt heavier than any year before it. She had said the words out loud without meaning to, like a prayer that escaped too late. She needed a husband by tomorrow, and she was broke on New Year's Eve. If you believe that kindness can change lives, that second chances arrive when hope feels foolish. Take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little light, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because people still believe in each other. She had never imagined her life narrowing to a single night like this. At 28, she had learned how quickly things fall apart when luck runs out. The diner had been her anchor since college, a place where the neon sign flickered like a tired guardian and the regulars knew her by name. She worked double shifts, smiled through sore feet, and saved every extra dollar in a jar labeled tomorrow, because tomorrow was always supposed to be better. But tomorrow had arrived with eviction notices, hospital bills for her mother back in a small town she couldn't afford to return to, and a deadline she couldn't ignore. Her grandmother's will, written in careful cursive years ago, had been clear and cruel at the same time. The old family house would pass to her, the only grandchild who stayed close, but only if she was married by the end of the year. It was meant as protection, a belief that a husband meant stability, but now it felt like a locked door closing. The diner was quieter than usual for New Year's Eve. Most people were chasing glitter and noise, not greasy booths and cracked vinyl seats. She liked it that way, because quiet made it easier to think, even when thinking hurt. Her manager had already gone home, leaving her to close up alone, counting tips that barely covered gas. She imagined the house slipping away, the one place her mother could recover in peace, the walls that still held laughter from before everything went wrong. Losing it felt like losing proof that her family had mattered. That was when he walked in, not with fireworks or noise, but with a tired calm that seemed out of place. He was tall in a worn winter coat, shoulders slightly hunched as if he carried more than just the cold. A little girl followed him, no older than 6, clutching a stuffed rabbit whose ear was missing. Her hair was braided with care, the kind of care that comes from learning by necessity. The bell above the door rang softly, and for a moment, the world paused. She noticed the way he scanned the room first, protective and gentle at once, guiding the child to a booth near the window. He moved like someone who had learned to make space for others before himself. She brought menus without thinking, her smile automatic but thinner than usual. He thanked her with his eyes, a quiet gratitude that lingered longer than words ever do. As she poured coffee and took orders, she watched them from the corner of her vision. The little girl swung her legs, whispering secrets to her rabbit, while he listened with the seriousness that made her chest ache. It reminded her of how her father used to listen, before he was gone, before everything fractured. The man ordered simply, counting coins before sliding them back into his pocket, deciding on the cheaper option without a word. She recognized that calculation. It was the same one she made every day. Time slipped closer to midnight. The TV above the counter showed crowds counting down, strangers kissing, promises shouted into the air. The diner felt like a pocket of forgotten time. When she refilled their cups, her hand brushed the edge of the table, and something inside her cracked open. She wasn't sure why, but the words came tumbling out, not as dialogue but as a confession she let spill into the space between breaths. She mentioned the house, the deadline, the impossible condition. She laughed it off at the end, the way people do when they're afraid of crying in front of strangers. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer pity. He listened, the way people rarely do, with his full attention and an expression that didn't try to fix anything. When she finished, embarrassed by her own honesty, she busied herself with wiping a clean surface again. The little girl looked up at her with wide eyes, as if she understood more than she should. The man nodded slowly, as if filing away something important. He shared, without drama, the outline of his own life. A wife gone too soon, a child who needed stability more than promises, a job that paid just enough if he was careful. New Year's Eve was hard for them, he admitted in the quiet way some truths are offered, because it marked another year of surviving rather than celebrating. They came to the diner because it was warm and familiar, and because starting the year without noise felt safer. Midnight arrived without ceremony inside those walls. The TV erupted in cheers, but the diner stayed still. She felt the year change in her bones, a door closing softly but firmly. Her chance was gone, she thought. Tomorrow would come, and she would face it with empty hands. She rang up their bill, slipping an extra slice of pie onto the plate without charging for it. A small rebellion against the way things were supposed to be. As they stood to leave, he hesitated. There was a weight in the air, the kind that settles before a storm or a decision. He looked at his daughter, then back at her, and something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't romance or desperation, but recognition. Two people standing at the edge of different cliffs, seeing the same dark water below. He offered an idea that sounded impossible and simple at the same time. A marriage of kindness, of paperwork and patience, of two families helping each other stand when standing alone wasn't working. No lies about love, no promises that couldn't be kept, just a choice to try. She felt the room spin, fear and hope colliding in her chest. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was risk layered on top of risk, but it was also a lifeline thrown across deep water. They talked through logistics with the careful seriousness of people who know what's at stake. The diner clock ticked loudly, each second a reminder that time didn't wait for certainty. She thought of her mother's medicine bottles lined up on a windowsill, of the house keys heavy in her pocket, of the child's rabbit with the missing ear. She thought of how alone she had felt minutes ago. Then she nodded. Morning came pale and cold, but the courthouse lights were on. Paperwork was signed with hands that still trembled. Witnesses pulled from a world that had no idea how much this meant. It was not romantic, but it was real. When it was done, she felt a strange calm settle over her. Like the quiet after a storm passes without destroying everything. Life didn't transform overnight. They moved into the old house slowly, respecting each other's spaces and silences. The little girl explored rooms like chapters in a book, claiming corners for her rabbit. Her mother smiled more as the days passed, strength returning in small increments. The man fixed loose boards and learned the rhythms of the house, grateful and careful with something that now belonged to all of them. Trust grew the way real things do, unevenly and without announcement. Shared meals, shared worries, shared victories that were small but meaningful. She kept working at the diner for a while, saving again. The jar now labeled us. He packed lunches with notes for his daughter, sometimes adding one for her too. Simple reminders that she wasn't alone in this anymore. Love did not arrive like lightning. It came like sunrise, slow and almost unnoticed until the room was full of light. One day she realized she laughed more easily. Another day she noticed the way he waited for her in doorways, making sure she passed first. The child began calling the house home without hesitation. The word husband stopped feeling like a costume and started feeling like a promise that was being quietly kept. Near the end of the year, they returned to the diner on another cold night. The neon sign still flickered, the coffee still tasted burned, but the fear was gone. She watched other people counting coins, wiping counters, hoping tomorrow would be kinder. She understood now how fragile and powerful a single moment could be. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that hope sometimes wears ordinary clothes and arrives without warning, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can be told. And before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below with one word that describes what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. On New Year's Eve, a year after everything almost fell apart, she stood in the doorway of the house that had once felt like a condition and now felt like a gift. Fireworks bloomed in the sky, reflected in the windows, and the clock ticked toward midnight again. This time, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. She had learned that family could be chosen, that kindness could become commitment, and that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with two broken people deciding to help each other stand.